All right, so get ready because today we are taking a deep dive into Jeitinho Brasileiro.
Oh, yeah.
It's that fascinatingly unique way
Yeah.
that Brazilians have of navigating life's complexities.
Absolutely.
It's all about finding creative solutions, bending the rules a little.
Yeah,
But that, of course, brings up some pretty interesting questions.
it does.
Is it resourceful or is it sneaky?
Hmm.
How does it actually play out in daily life, in business, on the global scene?
Yeah.
And what happens as the world becomes increasingly more digital?
Good questions.
Let's find out.
It's interesting you use the word sneaky
Oh,
because depending on who you ask, that's either a criticism or a point of pride.
really?
To understand why, we need to go back in time
Okay.
to Brazil under Portuguese rule.
Okay.
Imagine like a super strict hierarchy, limited resources, and a bureaucracy that can make anyone want to pull their hair out.
Oh, I can only imagine. That sounds like a recipe for frustration.
Eh.
I can already see how people would be looking for ways to, let's just say, work around the system.
Exactly. And that's exactly where Jeitinho was born.
Necessity, huh?
Necessity.
The mother of invention.
People had to find creative ways to get things done.
Right.
And it wasn't just about dodging rules.
No.
It was also about using personal connections, favors,
Mhm.
and building a sense of community just to get by in everyday life.
So it's more than just finding a shortcut, it sounds like.
Yes.
It's about this whole social fabric around problem solving.
You could say that.
Interesting.
Think about it.
Okay.
A society that values relationships, values favors.
Right.
That's a society where people are more likely to help each other out,
Right.
even if it means bending the rules a little bit.
I see.
And you know what? This connects really well with that idea of the cordial man.
The cordial man.
Yeah, by the historian Sérgio Buarque de Holanda.
Okay.
This idea suggests that Brazilians, they really put importance on warmth, on personal connections, sometimes even more than strictly following the law.
Wow, fascinating.
Yeah.
So Jeitinho is almost like a cultural glue, then.
Yeah.
It's a way to get things done,
Mm-hmm.
but it's also an expression of some deeper cultural values.
Exactly.
I like that.
Yeah.
But let's get down to brass tacks here.
Okay.
How did this actually work in the past?
Whoa.
Any interesting historical examples of Jeitinho in action?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, lay it on me.
Take the Bandeirantes, for example.
The Bandeirantes.
Yeah, these were explorers who went into the uncharted interior of Brazil
Oh, wow.
during colonial times.
Okay.
And they were tasked with expanding the Portuguese Empire,
Oh, wow.
but they faced huge challenges.
Oh, I bet. Like what?
Dense jungles,
Yikes.
hostile indigenous tribes,
Oh, okay.
and of course,
Oh, no, don't tell me.
It was-
Bureaucracy.
bureaucracy, exactly.
Yeah, how?
How'd they overcome all this?
Ow.
Jeitinho.
Ah, of course.
Negotiating with indigenous leaders,
Uh-huh.
forging alliances, finding creative ways around all those regulations.
Makes sense.
It was all part of their toolkit.
So it's like Jeitinho wasn't just for personal gain.
Yeah.
It was used to achieve these big, ambitious goals.
Exactly. It was a tool for survival,
Wow.
for exploration,
Uh-huh.
for nation building even.
Interesting.
And as Brazil went through industrialization,
Mm.
urbanization,
Right.
Jeitinho didn't go away.
It didn't.
It adapted.
Okay.
It became the way to navigate modern life,
I see, like what?
like finding a decent apartment in a crowded city
Mm-hmm.
or getting a permit approved
Yeah.
through
Let's just say unconventional means.
unconventional means.
Right.
Exactly.
Okay. I'm starting to see how Jeitinho is woven into the very fabric of Brazilian history and society.
Mm-hmm.
But what about everyday life?
Well,
For just your average Brazilian,
right.
can you paint a picture of what Jeitinho looks like on the ground today?
Okay, so imagine you're at the bank
Okay.
and the line is out the door.
Uh-oh.
It's hot.
Yeah.
You're running late. Everyone's getting restless.
I've been there.
And then suddenly, someone starts chatting up the person in front of them,
Yeah.
cracks a joke,
Uh-huh.
and boom, they've switched places in line.
Wow, that's bold.
That's Jeitinho.
So it's all about charm,
Uh-huh.
social skills,
Yeah.
to find a way around the rules.
A workaround.
I can see the appeal,
Right.
especially if you're the one benefiting.
Exactly.
But isn't there a risk
Well,
of things getting a little too flexible?
yeah.
Like, where do you draw the line between being resourceful
Uh-huh.
and just being plain wrong?
That's the question, isn't it?
Yeah,
That's the million-dollar question, right?
it is, isn't it?
Where does that charming resourcefulness
Right.
become something
Yeah.
ethically iffy?
Exactly.
And that's what makes Jeitinho so interesting, because it really does live in this gray area.
Yeah.
It's about context, intention, and this whole social landscape where personal connections and favors very often carry more weight than official rules.
So it's not a black and white situation.
Not at all.
It's like sometimes Jeitinho is a social lubricant.
Yeah.
It helps smooth things over.
Right.
But other times, it can lead to unfair advantages or maybe even cross those ethical boundaries.
Got it.
Wow.
And this duality, it's something that Brazilians themselves are constantly grappling with.
Oh, I bet.
There is that sense of pride
Yeah.
in being able to navigate this really complex system to find solutions where others might see roadblocks.
Yeah.
But there's also this understanding that Jeitinho, it can keep inequalities in place. It can undermine the rule of law.
Interesting.
And it can contribute to a culture where who matters way more than what,
Well, it's like a cultural tightrope walk.
Yeah.
Balancing being resourceful with being responsible.
Exactly.
Makes me wonder how Jeitinho is seen outside of Brazil. I mean, we live in such a globalized world now.
We do.
So this has to lead to some interesting cultural clashes, right?
Absolutely.
Right.
Imagine a business deal.
Okay.
Between, let's say, a Brazilian company and a German company.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
The Brazilians, who are used to a certain level of flexibility, improvisation, they might suggest some last-minute changes to a contract.
Oh, no.
But the Germans, who value precision, strict adherence to the rules, they're sitting there scratching their heads thinking, are they serious?
Yeah.
Are they messing with us?
Oh, I can see that going very wrong very quickly.
Yeah.
It's like these two companies are speaking different languages.
Totally different wavelengths, even if they're both trying to achieve the same thing.
So how do you bridge that gap?
It's tough.
If even possible.
It's definitely a challenge, but I think the key is awareness.
Okay.
And open communication.
Okay.
So for Brazilians who are dealing with other cultures, it's important to remember that Jeitinho might not be appreciated everywhere.
Right.
It might come across as unprofessional, disrespectful, or even untrustworthy.
Makes sense.
And for those who are working with Brazilians, a little understanding can go a long way.
Right.
Realizing that this isn't about malice or dishonesty, but rather this deeply ingrained cultural way of solving problems that can really help to avoid misunderstandings and foster better relationships.
It's like you have to learn to speak the language of Jeitinho.
Exactly.
Even if it's not your native tongue.
Exactly.
Which brings me back to something we mentioned earlier. Technology.
Right.
How's this whole digital revolution impacting this very human, this very Brazilian way of navigating the world?
It's a really fascinating question.
It is.
On the one hand, technology is giving Jeitinho new ways to thrive.
Really? How so?
Think about all those online communities where people are sharing tips for dealing with bureaucracy or all the new digital platforms that connect people offering and seeking favors.
Ah. Interesting.
So in a way, it's like Jeitinho is going digital.
So technology is a turbocharger for Jeitinho.
In some ways, yeah.
Interesting.
But here's where things get really interesting.
Okay.
Some technologies are pushing for transparency, decentralization, which could actually challenge some core aspects of Jeitinho.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
Let's take blockchain, for example.
Okay.
The whole idea behind blockchain is to create these secure and transparent records of transactions.
Okay.
And to cut out the need for middlemen.
Yeah.
Or, those personal connections that Jeitinho often depends on.
So blockchain's creating a system where everything is clear, traceable, and less reliant on who you know.
Exactly.
I was like the opposite of Jeitinho.
Yeah, you could say that.
Yeah.
And this isn't just some abstract concept.
No.
We're already seeing it happening in government transparency initiatives, in supply chain management, where blockchain is being used to reduce corruption. And to streamline processes.
So the very things that Jeitinho has traditionally thrived on.
Exactly.
Wow. I'm getting some serious future shock vibes here.
Yeah.
So it sounds like technology is creating this push and pull.
Yeah, this tug of war between tradition and innovation.
Yeah, how does Jeitinho adapt to this?
Right.
Can it?
It's a good question.
Yeah, it really feels like we're at this crossroads. On one hand, we have this deep-rooted cultural tradition, and on the other, we have this wave of technological disruption.
Yeah.
So how does something like Jeitinho, which relies so heavily on human connection, on this flexibility, How does that find its place in a world that's increasingly automated and rule-based?
That's the question a lot of Brazilians are asking themselves these days.
How about that?
As the country integrates more and more into the global economy, that pressure to conform to international standards of transparency and efficiency, it's undeniable. So Jeitinho, at least in its traditional form, might need to change.
To survive.
Yeah.
So are we watching the slow death of Jeitinho?
Not necessarily.
Yeah.
Remember, adaptability. That's in Jeitinho's DNA.
Okay.
It's always found ways to reinvent itself. And we're already seeing signs of this happening.
Really? Like what?
Look at the younger generations. They're growing up in a world where technology and globalization are the norm.
Right.
For them, Jeitinho might be less about bending the rules and more about using these new tools to innovate, to create opportunities.
So they're taking that Jeitinho energy and putting it into entrepreneurship and tech savviness. So instead of finding a workaround for a clunky system, they're building an app that just bypasses it altogether.
Precisely.
I like that.
And you know what? Think about the boom in Brazil's startup scene.
Okay. Yeah.
These young entrepreneurs, they're embracing this global mindset, but they're also holding on to that core Brazilian ingenuity.
That makes sense.
They aren't afraid to challenge the way things are, to find creative solutions, to build networks, which are all hallmarks of Jeitinho, but with a modern twist.
That's really inspiring.
It is.
It's like Jeitinho is going through this metamorphosis. It's shedding its old skin and becoming something new, something that aligns with the demands of this digital globalized world.
Absolutely.
It really makes you think.
It does, doesn't it?
Can Jeitinho hold on to its core identity? While still adapting to all these external pressures? Can it strike a balance between resourcefulness and ethical conduct? Between navigating those gray areas and operating within this global framework?
Those are some big questions.
They are.
And I think that's what makes Jeitinho so fascinating to explore.
I agree.
It's a window into Brazilian culture. But it also speaks to these broader challenges and opportunities of a world that's constantly changing.
Well, that about wraps up our deep dive into Jeitinho Brasileiro.
Yeah, I hope you enjoyed it.
We explored its historical roots, its ethical complexities,
absolutely,
and what its future might look like in this rapidly changing world.
A lot to think about.
And now, we want to challenge you, our listeners, to continue exploring this idea.
Exactly.
Think about how similar concepts might show up in your own culture and your own experiences. Does your society have its own version of Jeitinho? How do you navigate those gray areas where being resourceful bumps up against responsibility?
Good stuff to think about.
Food for thought indeed.
It is.
Thanks for joining us on this journey.
Until next time.
Keep exploring.
Keep questioning.
And keep those minds curious.